The amusement park was a lively place during the day, where entire families gathered to enjoy the rides, colorful lights, and treats. But at night, under the light of the pale moon and the distant glow of the stars, the place transformed into a gloomy and abandoned scene. It was in this sinister atmosphere that a group of teenage friends decided to spend a night of adventure. They were known to seek thrills and were always on the lookout for abandoned places to explore. That night would be no different. Amanda, a spunky girl with long dark hair, led the group. Her friends included Mike, an athlete always looking for a challenge, Sarah, a film student fascinated by the macabre, and Chris, a musician with an affinity for the unknown. They met at the park gates, each of them carrying a flashlight and a sense of anticipation. The park was practically deserted that night, except for the vague murmurs of the wind that passed through the decommissioned rides and tents. The friends moved forward, their laughter echoing hollowly through the rusted structures in oppressive silence. Initially, the excitement of the adventure enveloped them. They played hide-and-seek in the shadows cast by the toys, imagining they were exploring an abandoned world. However, this feeling soon gave way to growing uneasiness. The shadows that danced around them seemed to take inexplicable shapes, as if they were hiding from something. Amanda felt a chill run down her spine and looked at her friends, who also seemed uncomfortable. That's when the music started. A distorted sound, a circus melody that echoed throughout the amusement park. There was no live music there, nor energy to power speakers. Yet the music was there, hanging in the night air, making their skin crawl. Mike suggested that the song must be an old recording that was still stuck in the worn-out speakers. But the music was distorted, as if it had been played in a nightmare. Everyone agreed to follow the sound, as if they were being drawn by an unknown force. The music led them to a rusty carousel, its dusty wooden horses swaying lifelessly. The light that normally illuminated him had faded over the years, but there was still a faint, unsettling glow coming from within him. The friends approached the carousel, the sound of distorted music intensifying. Amanda felt a strange attraction to the carousel, as if something inside her was calling her. And then, without thinking, Tom, one of the friends, climbed on the ride. The carousel's rotation began slowly, as if it had been activated by an invisible force. Tom, with an expression of fascination and horror, was unable to avoid the macabre dance that was unfolding. He spun in circles, his hands clinging to the metal posts as distorted music filled his ears. His friends tried to pull him off the carousel, but he resisted, as if he were under the control of something they couldn't see. The carousel increased its speed, the lights began to flash erratically, and the music reached an unsettling crescendo. Tom was thrown hard off the carousel, landing on the ground with a groan of pain. The music stopped, and the ride stopped abruptly, the shadows surrounding it retreating as if they had been unmasked. Tom was pale and shaking, unable to articulate what had happened. The group rushed to him, worried and confused. The experience on the carousel had changed something within them, leaving them perplexed and anxious for what was yet to come. The amusement park had turned from a thrilling adventure into a nightmare they couldn't understand. After the carousel incident, the group of friends was tense and confused. Tom was still recovering from the inexplicable episode and could barely talk about what had happened. They decided to continue exploring the park, hoping that this was an isolated event. As they walked through the abandoned attractions, a sense of unease hung in the air. The park, once full of life, was now shrouded in an ominous darkness. The shadows seemed to move and writhe around him, as if they were entities of their own. Amanda led the group, determined to keep her courage and move forward. She didn't want to admit, not even to herself, that she was scared. The others also tried to appear fearless, but their nervous looks and the murmurs of the wind could not be ignored. As they explored, they heard again the distorted music, the circus tune that had guided them to the carousel. This time, it seemed to come from somewhere different, as if it were moving through the park. They followed the sound until they came to a weathered game tent. The music intensified, and the dim lights flickered brightly. Erratic way. It looked like the tent was in full operation despite being decommissioned for years. The friends approached cautiously and saw a lone man sitting on one of the game benches. He was dressed like a circus ringmaster from the past, with a striped suit and a top hat. His expression was unsettling, a forced smile that didn't reach his eyes. The man with a soft, drawling voice invited them to play. Sarah, the most curious of the group, decided to try it. She picked up a ball and prepared to throw it towards the targets. However, before she could make the pitch, the man began talking about dark secrets they were hiding. The other friends felt uncomfortable and insisted that Sarah put the game aside. But the man continued to talk, revealing personal details and secrets they would never have shared with a stranger. It was as if he could read their minds. Scared, Sarah finally abandoned the game and walked away. The man continued to smile, his empty eyes fixed on the group of friends. They turned to leave the tent, but something stopped them. A crowd of pale figures dressed like circus performers from the past appeared at the exit of the tent. They marched in a silent procession, their extravagant clothes and blank eyes fixed toward the group. The friends, paralyzed by fear, watched the procession pass by. It was as if they were witnessing a parade of lost souls, and each pale figure carried a look of suffering and melancholy. The feeling of being a nightmare grew even more. As they watched, one of the pale figures looked straight at them, as if he had noticed them. His blank gaze was piercing, and a shiver ran down everyone's spine. Slowly, the figure began to walk away from the procession, raising a pale hand towards them. Desperate, the friends fled the tent and ran towards a dark alley, seeking refuge in the shadows. The distorted music continued to echo in their ears, an ominous reminder of what they had witnessed. They were tired, terrified, and desperate to find a way to escape the nightmare that the amusement park had become. The friends, still shaking from their encounter with the pale figures in the games tent, continued their desperate run through the amusement park at night. They were determined to find a way out and escape the darkness that enveloped them. As they progressed through the park's eerie corridors, they began to realize that something was terribly wrong. The abandoned attraction seemed to take on a life of their own that night. The rides rotated and swayed as if they were in full operation, despite having been deactivated for years. The group was beginning to feel lost and disoriented when, suddenly, they came across a shadowy alley that seemed to lead nowhere. The darkness was oppressive, and a sense of unease enveloped them as they hesitated to enter the alley. It was then that they heard the distorted music again, a circus melody that echoed throughout the alley. It seemed like no matter where they went. The friends exchanged worried looks and agreed to follow the sound, as if they were being drawn by an unknown force. The alley was pitch black, and the shadows seemed to move and writhe around them, as if they had a life of their own. Amanda led the group, her flashlight lighting the way as they made their way through the darkness. As they walked, the music guided them to an open space, where a large circus tent rose darkly. The distorted music was louder than ever, filling the air with a chilling cacophony. The friends entered the tent cautiously, their flashlights revealing a dark and mysterious interior. In the center of the tent, there was a large antique circus mirror, the surface of which was fogged and full of cracks. However, what caught their attention the most was the fact that the mirror did not reflect their images. Instead, it showed disturbing glimpses into their pasts and events yet to come. Sarah, the most curious of the group, approached the mirror and looked at it with fascination and terror. She saw flashes of moments from her childhood, secrets she had never shared with anyone, and terrifying visions of future events that had not yet occurred. The other friends also approached the mirror, each of them seeing their own secrets and disturbing visions. They felt naked, as if the mirror was exposing their souls. It was as if they were being judged by their own deepest fears and secrets. The distorted music reached a disturbing crescendo, and the mirror began to vibrate violently. The tension in the air was almost unbearable, and the friends knew they had to do something to break the spell that had placed them on them, kept them trapped in that macabre place. With a mixture of courage and desperation, they decided to break the mirror. They each grabbed a part of it, and with a combined effort, managed to break it into pieces. As the mirror shattered, a blast of negative energy erupted from the center of the tent, creating a shockwave that reverberated throughout the amusement park. The shadows that had chased them retreated, and the distorted music abruptly ceased. Glimpses of her secrets disappeared from the mirror, leaving only cracks and splinters on the floor. As the darkness began to dissipate, the friends noticed that the pale figures and shadows were disappearing one by one. The amusement park returned to its nightly stillness, and the exhausted and injured friends finally found the exit of the tent. They knew they had faced something beyond human understanding. They would never look at the amusement park the same way again. What they experienced that night would remain a disturbing memory, a journey into the heart of darkness that had awakened in the sleeping park. After the circus mirror broke, the darkness that had enveloped the amusement park began to dissipate. The pale figures and shadows slowly disappeared, and the distorted melody that echoed in the air ceased definitively. The park returned to its nightly stillness, as if the threat that had haunted it had been removed. The friends, exhausted and injured, finally found the exit of the tent and left, breathing a sigh of relief. The darkness that had once enveloped them now seemed to be behind them, but they knew they would never forget what they had witnessed that night. When they emerged from the tent, they found the amusement park bathed in pale moonlight and distant stars. The place looked completely different from the one they had previously explored. The toys were now silent and still, without the shadows and disturbing sighs that had haunted the night. The friends, united by the terror they had faced, walked together through the now peaceful park. They shared looks of relief and gratitude for having survived the terrifying experience. The park, once haunted by the darkness of the past, seemed to have returned to being an abandoned and harmless place. As morning approached, they decided to leave the amusement park behind and head home. The sun began to rise over the horizon, dispelling the last shadows of the night. They knew they would never look at the amusement park the same way again, but they also knew they had faced their fears and survived the darkness that had awakened there. As they walked away from the park, something caught Amanda's attention. She noticed a small music box abandoned on the ground, next to a park bench. The box was worn with age, but it still seemed to work. She took it and carefully opened the lid. The melody that came out of the box was soft and comforting, a vivid contrast to the distorted music that had haunted the park. It was as if the music box was a reminder that even in the darkest of places, there was still beauty and hope. The friends shared a smile and continued their journey home, leaving the amusement park behind. They knew that the night they spent there would be a memory that would stay with them for the rest of their lives, a reminder of how they faced the unknown and triumphed over the darkness. As they walked away, the music box played its soft, comforting melody, as if sending a message that life went on despite the horrors they had faced. They didn't know what the future held, but they were determined to move forward, together, safe in the knowledge that they had faced evil and emerged stronger because of it. The amusement park, now silent and empty, would hold its dark secrets forever. The darkness that had been awakened there was once again sealed, waiting for a new awakening.